I told you yesterday, back in 1928, the communists declared that the cultural, economic, and social differences between the races in America could be exploited by them to create the animosity, fear, and hatred between large segments of our people, and it would be the necessary ingredients for a revolution. So, briefly, the three bold objectives were, as we outlined yesterday at this time: 1, create hatred; 2, trigger violence; 3, overthrow the established government. The problem with this was, as we touched on yesterday, is when they were trying to just bring together the African Americans and they were trying just to say, let's use that hatred, it was 10% of America, and they didn't have a coalition. They knew it would be horrible, horrible bloodshed. They didn't care, but it wouldn't do anything except get them all killed. So all the communists would be ratted out and killed, and they knew that that's not their goal. Their goal is revolution and gain control. And, the Black Panthers and the, Black Liberation Movement, they couldn't have seized power back in the 60s. It wasn't going to work. So they thought, if that doesn't work, how can we do this? Well, back in the 60s, and we talked about this with the Weather Underground, they knew that they had to expand their revolutionary force. It needed to be broadened. So you have the minority of African Americans, but also you'll have the minority of Hispanics. You have the poor, the unemployed, those on welfare, other minority groups. This is why you have Cesar Chavez Boulevard, because it was labor and migratory workers. That's the beginning of this communist outreach, okay? But then they needed the students, and they could get the students in the 60s, but it wasn't broad enough. They needed at least a generation past the students that believed the same things. You couldn't just do it with a bunch of 16 to 21-year-olds. You needed people at 35 going, yes, critical race theory, I believe that. So they had to infiltrate and start teaching all of these things and undermining the United States of America en masse. So they have done this, and they've done it and completed it. This has been done before. We've told you before. Czechoslovakia, the communists used a method of internal conquest, not the war of national liberation. And what they did is they used political means, and they used all of these other resources to cobble people together to bring a more peaceful transition to communism. Now, here's the plan that was hatched, and this is what's happening today. This is from the 60s and 70s, using unidentified communist agents and non-communist sympathizers in key positions in government, in communications media, and in mass organizations such as labor unions and civil rights groups. They demand more and more government power as the solution to all civil rights problems. So they've accomplished this. Key positions in government: socialists, Marxists, yes. Communications, yes. Mass organizations like labor unions. Have you seen the teachers' union lately? And in the civil rights groups, BLM. Now, total government is the objective of communism and Marxism. Without calling it by name, now listen to this. This is the part of their plan. Without calling it by name, build communism piece by piece through mass pressures for presidential decrees, court orders, court reforms, and legislation which appeared to be aimed at improving civil rights and other social reforms. I guarantee you, if Biden wins and the Senate is lost by the Republicans, you are going to hear that this was all voter suppression, and that's why we have to get rid of the Electoral College. They're not going to say it's because we can have total control. They're not going to get rid of the filibuster so we can rule the world. It's so they can stop bad guys who are trying to continue the oppression that this government has done for so many years. Now, riots. What if riots come? Well, more government housing, government welfare, government job training, finally, federal control over police. The essential economic and political structure of communism can be built legally and in apparent response to the wishes of the people on the streets who have clamored for some kind of solution to the problems played up, aggravated, and created outright by communists, socialists, and Marxists for just that purpose. Now listen to this. People right now feel like this is crazy. I can't live like this anymore. The problem's been played up. I don't know. The problems with police. We're making good progress. Many of the police chiefs that they've gotten fired or accused of being racist are black. In many cities, half of the police force is black. And yet it doesn't matter. We were all against what happened to George Floyd. All of us. We were united. But they played it up and they aggravated it. It's why we all said back in the summer, how we all agree on this. How is this a problem? It was the machinery of Marxism. Now listen to this. After that machinery is completed, this will blow your mind, and it is firmly established, then and only then can we allow the hidden communists, socialist, Marxist, one by one to make their identities known. You remember just 8 years ago, it was racist to call somebody a Marxist? And today they can't wait to tell you we have Marxists everywhere. So that's the next step, is to allow the hidden communists and Marxists and socialists one by one to make their identities known. We're there. Next step, liquidate first the anti-communists and then the non-communist sympathizers who are no longer needed in government. This is what's happening to Donald Trump and anyone who stands for the Constitution. Anyone who fights back. Do you know how alone Donald Trump is in this fight? You know how many cowards we have in our government? Do you know how many people that, can't wait to tell you that they're part of that socialist revolution? You know how many people that have infiltrated our government? He's completely alone. And reason why people still like Donald Trump is because he's the only guy that has kept his promise. And you know why he's kept most of his campaign promises? You know why? Because everyone is against him except you. You're the only one that believes in him. You're the only one not trying to, I think in some cases, literally kill him. He's loyal to you because you're loyal to him. He has no other ally. That's a great place to have for a president. So the total state mechanism can now openly and peacefully be transferred into the hands of the socialists. That's the so-called proletarian revolution. This is what's happened in other free countries when they didn't have a bloody revolution. It is probable that the communists, the socialists, the Marxists, the radicals, the anarchists, the Islamists are determined to use force and violence to its fullest, coupled with the weakening of the economy, our military being stretched, everybody being confused, our allies and our enemies knowing that we are weakened internally. And they are working hard to create the kind of psychological desperation in the minds of all citizens that lead them to accept blindly the government measures which actually help the radicals take over. Do you hear that last sentence? Create the kind of psychological desperation in the minds of all citizens that lead them to accept blindly government measures which actually help the communist, socialist, Marxists in their takeover. That's where we are right now. This is the game that has been played on you for the last 20 years. You are tired. You are worn out. How many people do you know that say, look, I don't agree with all of this stuff, and yeah, I don't think that Joe Biden is a Marxist, and will disregard Kamala Harris. Disregard all of the people from the Bernie Sanders campaign that Joe Biden has put in surrounding him on policies. They will dismiss it. The reason why they dismiss it is because they're tired of the chaos. And that is what the press is trying to do. They're trying to say that Donald Trump is the source of all chaos. That's not true. Donald Trump does like chaos. He does. He operates the best when things are crazy. It used to be a good thing for the as a president. When the going gets tough, they're at their best. But he does like chaos. But that's not what's happening anymore. Donald Trump is speaking the truth about the lies the press is saying. And we now have the evidence. It's not some kooky conspiracy theory, but you'll notice that the press, when it comes to Hunter Biden, is only talking about how media has reacted to that story. They're not actually telling the story or doing any investigative work to prove it wrong. There are no facts being disputed by the mainstream media. Why? Because it causes doubt, chaos, frustration. Oh, geez, we'll just be done with all of this if Donald Trump loses. You are being played. The psychological desperation in the minds of all citizens that will lead citizens to accept blindly government measures which actually help the radicals, the Marxists, in their takeover. So what do we do about it? So the communist program, the socialist Marxist program that was developed first in the 1920s, then refigured in the 1960s, has been going on in America since then. And it is well advanced. And it could have been thwarted in a very short period of time 20 years ago, just by exposure. The evil effects of what has already happened, however, cannot be removed overnight. And exposure isn't going to be enough because so many people believe this is the truth now, that Marxism is good, that all of this critical race theory is actually going to help. The animosity, the hatred, the extension of government control into our daily lives, this is going to take a long time to repair. And the already inflicted wounds between us are going to take a long time in healing. So may I recommend 3 things. First, do not place the blame on those people who are just like you but not informed. Don't place the blame on those who are peacefully protesting. I know I don't have to say this to you, but it needs to be said. These people, our friends and neighbors, they are just the unfortunate group that has been selected by professional Marxist agitators to be used as the primary source of cannon fodder. Black Lives Matter, they don't care. Not 1 in 1,000 Americans, black or white, really understands the full implications of the system of Black Lives Matter, what they're really doing. And the planning, the direction, and the leadership come from self-avowed, self-exposed Marxists. And the ones at the very top mostly are white men who fully intend to destroy America. They don't care if they have to spill blood as long as it's not theirs. Most Americans are being manipulated. Next, 2. I'm going to give you a story in about half an hour about what is being planned for riots on the streets coming November 3rd, 4th, 5th, and so on. You must not participate in any so-called backlash activity. That will further intensify the problem, the mob action. It fits their plan. This is what they want. And if you don't give it to them, I guarantee you they will use a group like the white supremacists, who are also socialists who want to overthrow the Constitution, they will use it. Do not be involved in any of that.